YouTube family, what's going on? It's your boy JR, Unloving Truth. We back with another video. Today is a glorious day for anybody who's been covering this Charlie Kirk case. We are screaming from the rooftops, free Tyler Robinson.
The underlying motion attaches a 4-page ATF report. This is a federal government report, a 4-page ATF report on a comparison between a bullet jacket fragment recovered during an autopsy of Charlie Kirk and a rifle recovered by law enforcement. The result of the comparison was inconclusive.
The ATF performed an analysis of the bullet fragment taken from Charlie Kirk's body, and they could not match it up with the .30-06. What? The bullet does not match? Am I the only person who finds this fishy?
Now, this report alone, in my opinion, should be enough to get Tyler off the hook. As far as I'm concerned, you arrested this man based on the fact that you found a gun with his fingerprints on it and a bullet that matched the gun, and you claim that that was the bullet used to kill Charlie. The ATF has now reported that that bullet does not match what you claim happened. You only got one way to go from here, and that's to find a new suspect, right? And it's so important to me that we highlight this because this is why I started this channel to begin with. From a young age, I think it was 18, when a friend of mine put me on game to 9/11 and showed me that the government can't be trusted, okay? They will lie and spin and create narratives to suit their overall agenda. A lot of times it's war, because war is very profitable for them. It's the most profitable business in the world. But if we can recognize some of these things, I think we can start to take some of our power back as everyday citizens, okay? In my opinion, and I think I can back this up with evidence, this is a playbook. This is not the first time that the government has run this play on us and used the same kind of tactics to push their agenda. So it shouldn't surprise anybody that the Charlie Kirk assassination looks exactly like 9/11, looks exactly like JFK, looks exactly like the Oklahoma City bombing, okay? The same playbook, the same pattern of behavior. Let's count the ways, all right? First, no eyewitness testimony, okay? The court in Utah ordered a gag order for all the eyewitnesses that were there that day. So right off the bat, you're not going to hear from anybody who was there because they are not allowed to speak to the media. What happened on 9/11? The 9/11 Commission ignored all of the eyewitness testimony. Eyewitness testimony from people that were on the news, from firefighters, from policemen, who said there were multiple explosions in the building before the planes even hit. Explosions in the building before the towers collapsed, okay? You have Barry Taylor, who was in Building 7, one of two people in Building 7 when it fell, who says there were multiple explosions in that building. Keep in mind, Building 7 was never hit by a plane to begin with, and yet it fell at free fall speed, just like Towers 1 and 2. It makes no sense. Let's go further back to JFK. We have multiple eyewitnesses to this day, that testify that there were multiple shots on that day, multiple shooters on that day. You have the famous eyewitnesses who claim that they heard a shot from the grassy knoll. And if you're doing an honest investigation, your best friend is an eyewitness, right? If I've seen the crime and I can pinpoint the suspect at the scene of the crime, I got a slam dunk case. So it makes no sense for anybody doing an honest investigation to ignore and not even accept eyewitness testimony. Another thing that all three of these cases have in common is the FBI, who proves time and time again that they are incompetent, okay? On the day that Charlie Kirk died, the FBI jumps in to investigate the case, and within, 48 hours, they're cleaning the crime scene. They literally paved over the crime scene at UVU. Just covered it up. Literally covered it up. Same thing happened on 9/11. FBI comes in. They start confiscating camera footage from the nearby buildings, footage that we have never seen. I believe they confiscated over 80 different cameras that recorded security footage. Okay. Footage from the Pentagon. We've never seen it. Right. And not only that, they go boots on the ground and start shipping out the steel from ground zero. Just literally just shipping it out, throwing some of it in the ocean. Like you can't do that. You can't do that. Same thing happened with the Warren Commission. Okay. It was the FBI that came to the conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. And the Warren Commission basically had their hands tied. So you see this pattern over and over again of the FBI stepping in and tampering with evidence, tampering with crime scenes, tampering with the investigation. And to me, this is how they get away with it, right? It's revisionist history, okay? History is written by the winners. If you can get away with it and you can push the lie long enough and repeat it over and over and over and over and over and over, eventually people either stop caring or they start to believe the lie because they've heard it so many times. And because it's coming from credible sources lie all the time. And it's my belief that this is why the FBI has backed out of this investigation. Okay. They were all hands on deck, turning over every stone until they had their narrative set. And now they've left the entire case up to the state of Utah. And this is alarming for multiple reasons. One, this is a political assassination. Okay. Charlie Kirk was not, I saw a comment on my last video where somebody was like, he was a podcaster. You guys need to calm down. Charlie Kirk is arguably single-handedly responsible for Donald Trump being reelected. Okay. It does not matter what you think about Trump. It's irrelevant right now. The fact of the matter is, without Charlie and TPUSA on the ground talking to these young kids on college campuses, Trump would have never got reelected. So he's much more than a podcaster. I watched Charlie Kirk for 2.5 years. I don't think I ever watched an episode of the Charlie Kirk show. Every time I watched Charlie, it was him doing debates on campus. So to diminish him and his legacy to being just a podcaster is crazy. But the bigger reason why I think it's a big deal is because Kash Patel keeps repeating over and over again that Charlie was his good friend. He was your good friend, and yet you've pulled out of the investigation? What kind of friend are you? And I'm sorry, but this is where we have to come back to Erika Kirk. We have to come back to her, because if you've seen some of Charlie's content in the past, you know he felt the exact same way about the JFK assassination that I do. He did not believe the government story. In fact, he has gone on record several times stating that the government and the CIA killed JFK.
I actually don't believe it was Lee Harvey Oswald that acted alone. I think it's much more likely that it was Cuban intelligence and our own government that killed JFK for multiple reasons. And I believe there was a second shooter. Could go through all the reasons as to why, but I think it defies logic that Lee Harvey Oswald, who was a notoriously bad shot, somehow found himself all the way up in the, the fourth floor or the fifth floor of the Texas School Book Depository, right as that motorcade was flying in a single bolt action rifle, being able to administer, I think it was 3 shots in 5 seconds with lethal precision, even though we all saw with our lying eyes in the Zapruder film, John F. Kennedy's head go back and to the left. If there are 2 shooters, that means that the Warren Commission, which was the official report on the JFK assassination, was fraudulent and was faulty. And we know from dozens of eyewitnesses and many first-person accounts that the thing called the grassy knoll, which is right there, which you all can visit in downtown Dallas, that there was activity there. They wouldn't allow people up there. People heard gunshots from there. If it wasn't for the Zapruder film, all this would just be hearsay. So I believe there were 2 shooters, but I think it's a much more likely explanation that our own government was either involved or aware, and Cuban intelligence also very much wanted JFK dead.
Now, again, let's just think about this for a second. You see the kind of person Charlie Kirk was, the way that he thought, okay? For lack of a better term, he was a conspiracy theorist, right? That's what everybody wants to label us who question official narratives. So think about how weird it is for Charlie to have that perspective on JFK and for his wife, Erika Kirk, to have this perspective on his assassination.
Which brings me to Erika Kirk, because I saw this old clip of her circulating from right before we met up, and it made me so angry. I just felt so much like a flood of anger overcame me. And it was her sit down with Bari Weiss, literally 72 hours before her and I sat down. And I just forgot that Bari Weiss asked her specifically whether or not she believed Tyler Robinson killed her husband. And listen to this terrible D-list actress. Take a listen.
Do you believe that Tyler Robinson murdered your husband?
Yes, I do.
Why do you think it is so hard for so many people to believe that reality?
Because it's too simple. Again, everyone always has to think there's more to the story. Well, sometimes there's not. I've seen the autopsy report. I've seen our case pulled together. I've been in constant contact with our lawyers, the prosecuting team. I've seen it all.
Evil. She is evil. When I watched that, I went, she's evil. I am so infuriated watching that back because she's lying. She's objectively lying and she's acting. She was told to say that to make people believe that she had access to something that we didn't, right? It was because of that clip that when I went in to meet with her, I was going, oh, okay, maybe she has something that the public doesn't. I spoke to the, I've been in touch with the lawyers. I've seen the autopsy report. And then I sit down with her 72 hours later and she tells me, and her lawyer confirms to me, that they have nothing more than what the public has seen. In fact, her lawyer went through great lengths to explain to me that it was actually, that's just not the way it works. Of course, they don't have anything more. He explained to me very carefully that it wasn't the right time for them to have any more evidence, that the investigation was just beginning. And so right now, their guys are going out and they're going to look for evidence. And then by May, which is fortunately around the corner, then she'll see what they found. So what the F is that performance?
I'll tell you what that is. She's lying. She's lying. I think about this, as a engaged, soon-to-be married man, okay? Me and my fiance mentally are like this, son. Like, we think about things the same. It hasn't always been that way, don't get me wrong. But I would never marry a woman who thought the exact opposite of me on so many key things. How can you claim in one breath, Charlie Kirk was a brilliant man, my husband was a brilliant man, and yet you don't think like him at all? Right? Y'all were together for, 8 years? You didn't pick up nothing on how he thinks, on his thought process? You don't think Charlie would want people like Candace Owens to be investigating his death? And it's no wonder why she goes on this town hall and says, oh, I've seen the case. My lawyers have seen the case. It's open and shut case. Johnson, sprinkle some crack on him. Let's get out of here. Like, you say that, but 3 days later, you meet up with Candace, and according to her, you said you haven't seen anything that the public hasn't seen. And the reason that we can take Candace's word for this is because Candace mentioned this in December. They had this meeting 3 months ago. Okay? If Candace would have lied about what took place in that meeting, we would have heard about it. Erika Kirk would have said something. Andrew Colvett would have said something. Blake Neff definitely would have said something because he loves to talk. They would have came out and they said, hey, this is not what Erika said. They haven't said a word about it. So now we have a conflicting moment, another conflicting moment from Erika Kirk, who not only is providing conflicting information to Candace and to the public, but she's conflicting what her own husband would have believed. There's no way Charlie would have just accepted the government's official story about what happened to him. He would have demanded that a thorough investigation take place before we come to any conclusions, just based off of what he knew from history of this same tactic, this same playbook being run in previous cases. And I'm pressing you, especially my believer friends, family, please do not let this woman come in here and run this game on y'all. I think everybody has spiritual gifts. My spiritual gift is discernment. All right. I can walk into a situation and feel when the vibes are off. All right. I've been to parties where the vibe wasn't right. I left, and come to find out, it was a shooting or a major fight happened. Or, as soon as we left, the cops pulled up, right? Like, it's always just kind of been something that the Holy Spirit has placed in my heart. Okay. And again, I think we all have these gifts. Some people have the gift of healing, some people have the gift of teaching. But for me, it's discernment. And I think it's moments like this where other people who have that discerning spirit, it's almost like we kind of migrate to each other. We all kind of seem to find each other, right? And we all rally behind a common cause that needs discernment. This is that cause. And so again, as we're removing the leaven from our spiritual lives, from our households, removing the fluff, removing the false doctrine, removing the traditions of men that are incompatible with Scripture, one of the biggest ones, in my opinion, is treating the government like the kingdom. Okay? The kingdom is ruled by our Heavenly Father, Yahuwah, the Most High. Okay? The government is run by people, and people lie, steal, cheat, kill, anything that they can to advance themselves. And so because of that, now we have to be even more vigilant, more on guard, okay? Because there are those people out there that live to do these things, right? Did we not just learn from the Epstein files, okay? There are hundreds of people in power that look like the right stuff, right? They look like the real deal. And in the background, they're performing rush hour traffic on children, okay? Or worse. We have to be more vigilant. We have to be more mindful. We have to be willing to step out in the forefront, step out on the front lines, and say enough is enough. So now that we have this information, this new ATF report that definitely confirms what a lot of us have been saying, Tyler Robinson, as far as I'm concerned, is innocent. What are we going to do with it? Okay? If you're somebody who's on the fence, you're still skeptical, you think he's guilty, what are you going to do with this information? Are you willing to come out and question what you believe? Are you willing to come out and say, okay, you know what? Maybe there's more to this. Maybe Candace is on to something. Maybe she doesn't get everything right. I don't think she's got everything right. I think there's some things that she's yet to even touch. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. A lot of creators in this space are ignoring the trapdoor that was next to Charlie. And I don't know if it's that big of a smoking gun. I don't know if it's already been debunked. I have done plenty of research to try to find, something that's like, okay, this is not in question. But I have found nothing that suggests that trapdoor was not involved in some capacity. I don't think you can ignore someone being assassinated and there just happens to be a trapdoor 10 feet away from him at the time of his death. To me, that's a red flag. And then you have the FBI coming in to cover it up. Okay? So I'm just saying that to say, I actually forgot what I was trying to say. I think right now, the pressure is even hotter on TPUSA and specifically Erika Kirk. Are you going to stay 10 toes down? Are you going to double down, triple down, quadruple down on the fact that you think Tyler Robinson is guilty, despite another big piece of evidence that suggests he's innocent? And at the very least, he did not act alone. That's going to be a good litmus test for some of these people and their character. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes from it. Again, I want to know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think. If you think I'm dead wrong, if you think I'm spot on, either way, let me know. Again, I want to thank you guys. We jumped up quite a bit in followers and subs after my last video. And, I told y'all before, I'm just stepping out in faith. I think this space needs more believers creating content instead of just consuming. And I think, the Father is calling me and the Spirit is pushing me to step out and do this thing. So any support, liking, subscribing, comments, all of that, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. we're just putting our heads down and doing the work. So that's what I got. Till next time, y'all.